So, Flora, in your introduction to the 2020 Penguin Classics edition of Brás Cubas, you say that 15 pages into Memórias Póstumas de Brás Cubas, when the narrator, delirious and on the brink of death, is carried off by a gruff, talking hippopotamus, I remember putting the book down and staring out of the window for a breath, delighted and taken aback. This was my first encounter with Brás Cubas. So could you please tell us more about your first encounter and how you came about translating this book?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's lovely to be here. Thank you all for being here wherever you are. Um, I was, I think we have to take a couple steps back and talk about how I came into contact with Portuguese, which was equally random, truly. Portuguese, Brazil was not on my radar. I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia. I have no family or other ties to Latin America. I wound up studying Spanish in school because it seemed more useful than French. That was my calculation. And I had one wonderful teacher who really opened the door to Argentine literature. She really loved Borges, so much so that we would make a Valentine's Day card for her to Senora Shank from Jorge Luis Borges. Um, and it was just chance that when the college that I wound up going to, Princeton, the department there is Spanish and Portuguese. So I went to the open house, first semester, college freshman, first days, just to figure out what sort of courses they would have in Spanish language literature, because that was something that I imagined, it won't be my main focus, but I want to keep it up throughout college. And when I went to this open house, there were these very nice people who were doing a whole lot of networking. They were just making the rounds around the room with these pamphlets. To anyone who was trying to sign up for Spanish language courses, they were saying, if you speak Spanish, you should learn Portuguese. If you speak Spanish, it'll be so easy. And I fell for it. My laziness, I was thinking, oh, I'll pick up another language in college, maybe Russian, maybe. I could be here talking about Dostoevsky, but it's going to be so easy since you already spoke Spanish. And it was easy for the first week and a half, and then it just confused me deeply. But by that time, I was already out of shopping period, so I was stuck with it. My first semester of Portuguese was pretty much just getting my head and my tongue around the language. There wasn't much of an emotional connection. And I also often say that if I hadn't had to do 2 semesters of Portuguese to get the language credit, as lovely as the teachers were, if I hadn't had to have 2 semesters, my life might be very different. Because in the second semester, a lot of things happened. I started taking a course on Brazilian cinema, which gave me images of Brazil. I started doing my first translations from Portuguese, which is another completely random thing. This request just fell into my lap to translate a biography of Carmen Miranda. And then from there, I started falling in with Brazilian music and Brazilian culture from that period. And so after I came into contact with Machado de Assis in the after the fall of my sophomore year. It was between semesters, and at that point, I was in a serious long distance relationship with Brazil, still having never set foot there. But completely my body was in Princeton, but my mind was constantly in Brazil. And I had a good enough grasp of the language so that I could not only translate basic things, but I also felt that it was sort of the time had come to take on more extracurricular reading. If I'm going to be in a relationship, quote unquote, with Brazil, then I need to really to take on the big boys. And my understanding, sort of colloquially, vaguely, was that I had to go knocking on Machado's door. Um, and I honestly just chose the weirdest title, which is the Posthumous Memoirs of Brás Cubas, Memórias Póstumas de Brás Cubas. I ordered it in Portuguese from a used bookstore. They had it in the library at Princeton, obviously, but I wanted to be able to. I think it was this thing of I want to be able to own this book. I want to be able to make it mine. So I got this really, um, modest, unbeautiful edition. Um, and I sat down in the frame of mind of I am doing my homework, I'm, being a serious Brazilianist. I'm going to read this important book with, capital I and capital B. And I think there was that frame of mind that set me up for such a wonderful surprise because, the beginning of Memórias Póstumas, of the Posthumous Memoirs, is he sets you up and knocks you over, and that's exactly what happened to me. I realized one realizes very quickly that whatever you thought this book was, it's going to find a way to surprise you. And another thing that I've since reflected on is, I was a year and a half into college, and I'd had this experience that I think a lot of people who love literature and then can hold things together better. But I was talking about the experience of, loving literature and starting to study literature in an academic setting and having a sense of, oh, I broke my toy. I didn't, this isn't how I wanted to engage with these works. Sort of, it felt like more of a vivisection, of having to just go deeper and deeper until the work feels like it's not even really responding properly. And all of that might have just been, nothing, no demerit to the professors, just sort of a lot of sophomore exhaustion. But that was something I was feeling, and how far do I even want to take this? What do I want to do? Do I want to continue in academia? And Brás Cubas was that experience of like, here's a book that's biting back. Here's a book that no matter how much I analyze it, no matter how, close I put the magnifying glass up to it, uh, it'll still be alive. There'll still be mysteries around the bends. There will still be something that escapes me. There will always be new things to discover. And it was like I'd found the philosopher's stone or something, it's it I knew then that it would be a book that I would want to have for company, that I would want to revisit throughout my life. But I certainly could not have predicted, at that point there were two major English language translations in general circulation, and I could have never imagined that I would wind up doing one of my own. But I can talk about that, or we can go to questions from other people.